5. Repression. In a radio debate, Larry Flynt, editor and publisher of the sexually oriented magazine Hustler, declared, "You see, I happen to feel most of the social ills are caused by repression, not permissiveness." His views, Reverend Larry Jones's, are the opposite. "I believe most of our social problems are caused from this repression and not a permissive attitude. I think if we become a more sexually liberated society, a lot of our problems would not exist, mainly crime." What Flynt refuses to admit is that man is at war with God, and man's desire is to sin, to violate God's law. It is not repression which leads to crime, but man's desire to be his own God and law. The sinner finds the legal, godly way difficult, boring, and repressive, but sin is, for him, a way of life. A prostitute, describing her passionate love affair with a married man, remarked without comprehension on the fact that, when the man gained a divorce, something went out of our relationship, and it ended. The logical step was to marry, but that made the relationship lawful, and hence untenable. The 20th century has seen much literature, professional, literary, and amateur, on the idea of repression. Flynt has summed up the popular meaning of it all in his comments. "The evil is repression. Repression causes all kinds of evil. Eliminate repression, give man full freedom, and crimes and social problems will gradually wither away." All this is another way of saying that the problem is not the criminal, but the law against crime. The law is repressive, and therefore it leads to crime. Eliminate the law, and you eliminate the crime. Behind this stands another implicit charge. God is the source of these troublesome laws. Man is in trouble because God and Christianity are repressive. Eliminate God, the Bible, and the Church, and man will be free and justified. In Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 to 5, the tempter accuses God of repressing man. Man, he holds, needs to be free from God's repression in order to realize himself and become his own God. Biblical justification is by imputation. Although man is not righteous before God, God the judge imputes the righteousness of Jesus Christ to the sinner and declares him justified. As Berkhoff wrote, "Justification is a judicial act of God in which he declares, on the basis of the righteousness of Jesus Christ, that all the claims of the law are satisfied with respect to the sinner." From beginning to end, justification is the act of God. He is the lawgiver whose law has been broken. He is the court and the judge before whom all flesh shall appear. He is the Redeemer whose atonement effects man's justification, and before all this, he is the Creator who made all things, including man. False justification declares that all this is wrong. God, having made man, should release him to go his own way and be his own God. In false justification, it is held that God's act is invalid, and that only as man is free from God's repression can man's true justification emerge. This view is not only applied to the theological realm, but to the family and society. Thus, when a Baptist pastor in New York State administered a well-deserved spanking to his 14-year-old daughter, he was taken to court and his child taken from him. The paddle was about the size of a ruler or paint stick, and between 10 and 12 swats were administered. This was called child abuse. The Welfare Department of Onondaga County, however, as represented by two of the welfare workers associated with the Roy case, views the parental religious training of Shirley as violative of her rights as an individual to choose for herself what is right. The sexual revolution is a classic example of the war against repression. Not surprisingly, the demands of the revolutionaries are steadily stepped up in their lawlessness. In politics, the repression of man is seen as a great evil, that is, any repression by God and His Word. In its place comes the repression by the state as the new freedom. This should not surprise us. In a world of moral conflict, something will be suppressed, either good or evil. The various modern opponents of repression are really seeking the repression of God and His law, and their replacement by a radical permissiveness for evil. This means justification by means of eliminating the laws which have been broken. Every effort to end the repression of man is thus an attempt at the repression of God and His people. Paul tells us of the unregenerate that the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. Romans chapter 8, verse 7. The unregenerate repress or suppress the knowledge of God within them. Romans chapter 1, verse 18. And they wanted suppression in the world at large. However, because the whole world is God's creation, and every man therein, including God's enemies, is God's creation, all things witness to God. Psalm 19, verses 1-4. This means that the champions of freedom from repression become the greatest of repressors. They are of necessity forced to suppress and remake all things in order to justify themselves. The result is a totalitarian state and world order. Just as for Christianity the sinner must be remade into a new man, so for humanism the old man, created in the image of God, must be destroyed and remade into a new man, a self-created humanistic man, in order to regain paradise. The end result of false justification is totalitarianism and the humanistic state. It is tyranny and repression. It is the great effort to destroy all things in order to obliterate God and His handiwork. Man must be destroyed, Nietzsche held, to make way for Superman. Man as he is was savagely hated by Nietzsche, because man as he is, sinner or saint, is inescapably a witness to God's handiwork. Nietzsche thus sought justification for man, but a mass destruction of man. Self-justification is madness and suicide.